Hi there, my name's Ben, welcome to my channel, and welcome to my review of the first episode of Tell Me Why. Real quick, a little bit about myself. My name's Ben, like I said, and I love Life is Strange. I love the work Dontnod has done. I love the first season. I love Before the Storm. Season 2, I even like Captain Spirit, even that got me all choked up and emotional. And I also like the comic books. I'm such a dorky dork. I love these comic books as well, because I was one of the people kind of wanting to see a sequel to Max and Chloe, but I respect Dontnod's decision to not have stories featuring them. They felt like the story was complete, but luckily they gave the green light for Titan Comics to make comic books, and maybe in another video I will review those. But anyway, I know, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Let's get to this content. This is Tell Me Why. I was interested in playing Tell Me Why because it's a Dontnod game. It has been jokingly referred to as Life is Strange Season 3, but anyway, let's get into the synopsis of Tell Me Why. What is this game? It was marketed as a game that is the first to feature, not just feature a transgender character, but as a playable protagonist, who also is voiced by, I don't know if he did motion capture, but voiced by a transgender man named August Black, who also not only performed in it, but contributed to the dialogue, giving his perspective as a transgender man. Tell Me Why is about Tyler Ronan meeting his sister, Allison, after 10 years of being separated. They are finally reunited when she picks him up to take him to their childhood home in Alaska, where they must clean the house out to put it on the market. But naturally, while there, the pair make some powerful discoveries about their troubled childhood, during which Tyler started realizing he identified more as a boy, before transitioning as he got older. But let's get into the elephant in the room. This was made by Dontnod. Is it Life is Strange Season 3? In a lot of ways it is. I actually wrote out on a list a lot of the ways I noticed it was like Life is Strange. First of all, obviously it's choose your own adventure. There's no combat, there's no heavy controls. The control style in general, the way you move, the way you interact with objects around you, very similar to Life is Strange. You have two protagonists that are kind of like attached to the hip, and every Life is Strange game has seemed to have really two main protagonists. You don't necessarily play as them, but the game portrays them as the heroes. So Max and Chloe, Chloe and Rachel, the Diaz brothers. That's a general trope in the Life is Strange games. You have small town corruption. There's a lot of takes place in these rural areas, Arcadia Bay or like Nevada. There's a lot of corruption from the people at the top, making life terrible for the people at the bottom. And obviously this show deals with the discrimination against a transgender person in a very small town where rumors spread quickly and all that sort of stuff. And also some bad dad jokes and bad puns, which, you know, I have an appreciation for, but you definitely see that and notice that it's very similar to Life is Strange. But as I was playing, I was like, okay, but that's just because it's the same design. You know, Uncharted and Last of Us have similar themes as well because they're made by Naughty Dog. So, but you know, they're still different games. I mean, it's not like they have superpowers or anything, right? And then about a third of the way through, we realize that these two siblings, Tyler and Allison, have the ability to communicate to each other through their brain holes. So there's a lot of similarities. If you told me this was Life is Strange Season 3, I wouldn't bat a wink. Okay, new characters, same basic mechanics, same style. They have superpowers, which are different from the other two seasons. I don't see any difference. And the main question is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. I mean, I love Life is Strange. I don't mind if it takes some tropes from a very successful indie game. If they make much more games down the road and they all kind of follow this similar formula, then it starts to become very visible and very obvious. Then it can get pretty old. You know, like if you're a Doctor Who fan, you probably know there's a writer, Stephen Moffat, who started his career making brilliant episodes. He was the one who made the Are You My Mummy episode, the Weeping Angels. Those are all his ideas. So he was known as a great writer, but when he took over the show, he started writing more episodes, and people started to see, oh, he kind of has this like step-by-step formula to all his episodes. There's a villain with some quirky weakness. You can't breathe, you can't think about this, you can't blink. There's a lot of tropes in the dialogue. The women kind of tend to be all the same way with him. He kind of makes them all snarky and two-dimensional. And there were a lot of different tropes that people kind of just started getting tired of him, even though he was a brilliant writer when he first started writing for the show. It just became obvious through his formula, and you know, it was kind of a one-trick pony after a while. So that could happen with Dontnod in the future, and I'll be here reviewing all their games in the future to tell you if that happens. But right now, after playing episode 1, it seemed fine. So what do I think of the story style? Without going into too much detail, I like the formula of them starting off with this massive, explosive revelation that gets you hooked into the story, and then you find out more and more as the story goes by, slowly but surely, in a way that really keeps you interested, and it kind of peels off the layers, and then at the end, it reveals another massive twist that totally changes all of that and makes you excited for episode 2. Also, seeing the two siblings meet after 10 years, they get on a ferry to go to the town where their house is, and we discover things about their history and what's happened since they left and all this sort of stuff, and it's actually actually a good way of kind of doing that exposition, because it makes sense that they are talking to each other and giving exact details on what's happened since they left in a way that is digestible for us, because they haven't seen each other in 10 years. And then we find out more about their childhood when we get to their actual house. But before we get to that, let's talk about the voice actors. Now, first of all, we do have August Black, who plays Tyler Ronan. He does a great job bringing a lot of character and emotion to his role. He, of course, not only played the role, he also contributed to the dialogue as well. I also want to point out that the show worked very closely with GLAAD, which is an institution that helps bring representation and proper representation to LGBTQ people in video games and all sorts of media. But yeah, August Black really does a great job bringing that kind of resentment toward his childhood and some of that frustration with not being raised the way that would have been ideal for someone going through what he did. Erica Lindbeck plays Allison, and she does a fantastic job. She brings a lot of warmth and depth to her character. She comes off as very realistic, very sincere. Now, obviously, she's been in a lot of other things. She's very experienced. She was also in Spider-Man, Mortal Kombat 11, Final Fantasy VII Remake. She has a long list of things she's done, and I can't wait to see how she does later in the series, and I'm sure the series is going to get a lot more deep and demand a lot more emotion, and I'm excited to see both of their skill sets applied to these characters as the series goes on. I also want to take a moment to give credit to the design and the direction and cinematography of this story. Life is Strange Season 1 was considered a very successful game, but it was lambasted a lot for being, it's an indie game, and the design wasn't on par with a lot of other, massively popular games. It had some glitches, it didn't have the best details and design, the lip syncing wasn't great, and I gotta say, in 2020, 5 years after that game came out, Tell Me Why has really good design in my opinion. I mean, everything from the fabric in Daniel's jacket, the freckles on their faces, the landscape when you're on the ferry. I just wanted to sit there and just turn the camera angle on my mouse and just keep looking at that forever. The design was just so beautiful. There's even a scene where Tyler had a moment of shock and the camera showed his hair standing up on the back of his neck, and it was so clear and so realistic. I was just so stunned. The animation has come such a long way from Rinky Dinky Life is Strange Season 1. Still love that game. The lip syncing and the realistic facial expressions also has come a long way. Also, I do love the social commentary of this game. I'm just happy we're seeing a game where a transgender person is not only in the game and not only a protagonist, but you actually play as that character. Now, one scene that really stood out to me was a scene where Tyler was really young and he got his first haircut, and it was portrayed with the music in the background and their happy expressions because Allison was helping him cut his hair. It really portrayed the specialness of that scene. To my understanding, for a transgender person to cut their hair for the first time, if they're, say, transitioning from girl to boy, now that's like a really special moment that makes them feel like they're more comfortable with who they are. And I think the game actually brought some representation to that and showing this is a really special moment, which wouldn't be obvious to someone who doesn't go through that. And I just thought a scene like that really showed, that they're working with people who understand this kind of experience in life. And I really liked that representation. Now, let me just get into this right now. Is it a perfect episode? It's not. For me, about sort of halfway through-ish when they get to the house, this is kind of a weakness of Life is Strange. Sometimes it can get a little errandy, where you have to do these little tiny things and you have to, it makes it kind of hard to play on replay, because it's like, oh, I just want to get to the story part. So it just kind of slows down, and because I was so interested in the characters and in the story, I kind of wanted the plot to progress. It felt like it was kind of a chore to get through that. But it was minor, and it paid off at the end. We saw some massive revelations later on, and the story picked up a lot, but that was a slight flaw for me. Obviously, the dialogue can be a little cheesy. You have some weird, corny humor, like there's a joke about a mailbox bandit, and Tyler says, oh, I thought you were talking about an actual mailbox that was banditing people. It's kind of joke I would do, but I can see that not being everyone's taste as far as humor. And in general, another big elephant in the room is that this kind of story isn't for everyone. Not everyone who's into gaming is into these stories that are really about character and really heavily story driven, doesn't have a lot of combat, doesn't have a lot of, jumping over pipes and headshotting zombies and all this sort of stuff. Some people just aren't into these kind of games, and I accept that, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're against the message of the game. It could be that they're just stylistically the game may not be for them. So I do accept that, but the gaming industry is huge, and I'm glad there's games for everyone for what they want. So as far as a conclusion, at the end of the game, they give you an option to rate the game from 1 to 5 stars, and I went ahead and clicked a 4 stars. I really like how it introduced the characters. I love the representation. I love the design and the direction. It does have moments where it gets a little slow and drags a little bit, and obviously the style isn't for everyone, and some of the dialogue can be cheesy and etc. And I think the design has come a long way since their start in Life is Strange Season 1. Bit of trivia, Tell Me Why takes place in the year that Life is Strange came out, 2015. Alright, that's my review. I probably missed a bunch of stuff I wanted to say, but I just wanted to condense it as much as I could. I recommend playing this game. It is $30 on its own, although if you have Game Pass, you can play it right away. The first episode at least. The second episode comes out next Thursday, and then the Thursday after that, the third episode comes out. I can't wait to play it, and I hope to continue doing these reviews when they come out. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you have any constructive criticism, this is my first video game review, I think, ever. So any constructive criticism, hey, could you also talk about this? Could you do that? I'm sure there's a lot of categories I missed. Oh, the music. Yeah, I like the music. I always love the music in Dontnod games. And then I could just come up with a bunch of more stuff to say, but I'm just going to leave it there. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next week for episode 2 of Tell Me Why, and I'll see you guys later.